Hey, you're watching Premo Cooks. I'm Danielle Premo, and today we're going to do a how-to video on how to make lentils. We have brown lentils. They're also called green lentils or gray-green lentils. They're the most common. They're the ones you're most familiar with generally. So right here I have this bowl with a colander in it. What you want to do is take your lentils and wash them off first under running cold water. You can sort through them too to make sure there's not any hard little bits in there. Sometimes you'll get a rock or a very dried out lentil that you want to take out. I'm going to walk you through the steps, and then afterwards I'm going to give you more information on lentils and some other tips on how to make them at home. So let's take these rinsed lentils and get them in our pot. I have 1 cup of lentils in here that I've rinsed off, and now I'm going to add 3 cups of water. You could also use homemade soup stock for extra flavor. But I'm gonna go with water because I intend to use these for a salad, so I don't want to impart too much flavor from the beginning. I'm gonna put them on my simmer burner back here. I'm gonna add a little piece of kombu seaweed, which I'll talk about later. And then we're gonna bring this to a boil. Oh, Jesus. I always do the wrong burner. Okay, that's the right burner. So now we wait. These lentils are coming to a boil. I've been staring at them so patiently. They're almost there. Once they're at a rapid boil, which they're very close to doing, I'm going to turn them down to a simmer. And because I use gas, I'm going to turn it down to a very low simmer because if I don't, they're going to cook a lot faster and fall apart. So this is a pretty rapid boil that we have going here. So I'm going to turn my heat down. I'm bringing it down to a simmer. I'm going to keep watching it for a few seconds though to make sure it's low enough. You still want to see some bubbles, but you don't want still water. Let me go a little lower. So that looks good right there. Now what I'm going to do is set a timer for 15 minutes now that it's simmering, and then we'll let them sit uncovered. Do not cover them. Timer. We'll be back in 15 minutes to rinse these off. No, what are we going to do in 15 minutes? My 15-minute timer just went off. Now I'm going to turn off this burner with my lentils that have been simmering for the past 15 minutes. And then this next step, real easy, what I want to do is now salt them. I didn't salt them during the cooking process. And what I like to do is take, for 1 cup of lentils, I'm going to take ½ teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to mix the salt in and let this stand for 3 minutes so that the lentils can cook a little bit longer, because generally they take about 20 minutes, but they'll sit in this hot water, keep cooking, and then that salt will absorb into the lentils so they'll grab some flavor. And then I'm also going to do a test just to see where they're at. Oop, yep, maybe you saw that, but that just flew out of my hand when I squished it. They're nice and cooked through, but they're not too mushy, and they're going to continue to cook a little bit longer in this hot liquid. So we'll give it, let's see, 2 or 3 more minutes, and then I'm going to go and strain them at the sink. So now I'm going to dump the lentils out in this colander. Make sure I get all this liquid off. There's also that piece of kombu in the lentils that you can remove at this point. Once you have most of the liquid, or rather all of the liquid, and not any moisture coming off, what I like to do, especially if you're going to be using this for a salad and you want it to cool, I spread mine out onto a parchment-lined baking sheet. Spread them out so that they cool faster. If they are all sitting on top of each other in that bowl and they're hot, they're going to keep cooking and they're going to become a little mushier. And so my intention is to use these for a salad. I want them to retain their shape. So now that they're spread out, wait for them to cool before you serve them, or store them if you want to save them for later use. And I'm going to talk about that right now. Now that we've made our lentils, I'm going to answer some questions that folks might have about them. First, though, I want to review just the steps that we just went through. So we had 1 cup lentils to 3 cups water. We put a piece of kombu in, we boiled them, let them simmer, added ½ teaspoon salt. So those are the 4 ingredients that you're going to have in there. And that's just to make a basic lentil to use for salads or to add into stir fries or whatever else you want to do with them. And then the next question is, what are the different colors and do you cook them all the same way? So there's several varieties of lentils and they're named by their color. So the ones that we use today are the most common. They're brown lentils or green lentils. They're called both, or gray-green, but they're all the same thing. They're the most common. There's French lentils that have a darker color. Those you can cook the same way. Black beluga lentils, which are the least common, you can cook those the same way. But red and yellow lentils, when you cook those, they become a bit more mushy. They're more common in Indian food and Ethiopian food. They're used to make more creamy sort of side dishes. So for French, black, or the green or brown, you can cook them in this way. For seasoning, folks asked if you could add anything to your pot while you're cooking them. The one most important thing is that you want to add the salt at the end. Otherwise, it makes the lentils a bit tough and they take longer to cook. So that's why I season at the end and let it sit in the salt water. You could also, if you want to add flavor, if you're going to use them for a more savory dish, you could add in bay leaves or some onion or garlic to impose more flavor. Another thing I like to do with them, depending on what their purpose is at the end, toss them in a little bit of tamari, which is like a soy sauce, and that adds some really awesome saltiness to it. And then lastly, how do you store the lentils once you've made them? So we laid ours out on a baking sheet so that they would cool because I want to add them into a salad. But if you didn't want to use them right away, you could store them in the fridge for a couple of days in a sealed container, or you could portion them in freezer bags and lay them out flat in your freezer so you just have a bag of lentils that you could dump into something as needed. And those are all of my thoughts for you about lentils. Good luck trying this at home.